He is passionate about something, incidentally, that resonates with me also, which is personal change. He believes that we must be the changed we seek to see in the world around us. No matter what our age, business, or life choices, we must be able to make a change proactively whenever we want to. This is different from being forced by circumstances to change. He conducts workshops and creates digital content to this end. Uh, Hee Ha Ha is head, heart, hands, the how of personal change. Hee Ha is also the what of personal change, health, help, and harmony. So check out his blog on www.heheha, that's HEHEHA.org. In previous avatars, Bridge was a CTO at HP and evangelized sustainability at Wipro. I invite Bridge to take the session further. Thank you.
So I want you to think back, because you are experienced people, all of you. Think back to a time at work. You remember? Can you recall that time when you were happy with what you did? Maybe it was a challenge, maybe you had to prove something to someone. Something happened. Fair enough? It is set in your mind? Think of another time when you were really satisfied with whatever you were doing. So these are two different aspects of being happy at work, right? So think of a different time. Maybe, okay, you can cheat in the same time, will also work if you wish. But of a time when you were really satisfied with what you did. Is it there? Okay. It's a limitation of this large room that I can't ask each one of you. So I'm going to have to do with some things like ask for your okay rather than ask for what the instance was. And if there's a time that you wish would come back, can you think of that time? Now look at these three instances and see if you see a pattern. What's common between these high points in your professional life? Is there something common? What's common? I want to know that. Speak out, shout out, please. Emotions. You are emotionally involved. Both ways means? Oh, okay. So, but there was a strong engagement from the heart, right? At the back, somebody wanted, yeah. Yes. So the happiness will come from doing the project, or it is at the expense of happiness that you are doing the project? It's the realization that there are two. Okay. What else? Okay. It was a challenge. Hold on to that thought, please. So I am the person who is accountable. It is from before. It might be somebody else, but for me, it is where the buck stops. You owned it, right?
For me, it was about the impact that it had on others.
The impact. So the pattern of happiness is many times because we overcome a challenge. And all of us have a thinking part, which is the CPU for us. We can't just be CPUs, so we have the heart, the part that engages with others, the part that feels, that connects. And then there's the doer in each of us. Without that doer, we would not be just anywhere, because it is the doing that speaks for us in our actions, right? So you could say that if I'm looking at myself, I am seeing myself as head, I'm seeing myself as heart, and I'm seeing myself as hands. And I'm going to talk a little bit more in these head, heart, hand terms, which is why I thought, let me introduce it like this to you. So one reason why I was happy could be because I overcame a challenge. There's one more. And the one that I put down was, maybe I learned something. The challenge is what comes to me from outside. Learning is what happens to me from inside. Usually they go hand in hand. It's not like you can separate it out and say, okay, I will only do learning or I will only do challenges. Invariably, challenges leave you wiser. And for real learning to happen, if it is not accompanied by doing, then it's not going to be there. Okay? So, let's start with this, that if we want to find our happiness, let's not wait for boss or somebody else. We've got to put our own head, heart, and hands to use to find the happiness that we seek. So this is not about running away from your circumstances or about trying to change situations and wishing that they would change by somebody else's efforts. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that perhaps in a way I am saying that, because how would you respond to the statement if I said that for every external block that we face in the outside world, there is a corresponding inner block? That thing outside is troubling us so much, not because it is a troublesome thing for its own sake, it is, but because there is something in it that is hooking from inside. If we fix the stuff from inside, whatever is outside will just flow by. Yeah, it might cause us some inconvenience. I agree. So if we're going to look at head, heart, and hands by thinking, feeling, and by doing, how do we find happiness? Then the opposite of happiness is unhappiness. And I would ask you to think in terms of what makes a manager unhappy in her job. Not intellectually stimulating, which means the head is it is less used than you would like it to be used. What else? Right. So if you were to draw 3 circles on left side and 3 circles standing on the right hand side, the 3 standing circles, one on top of another, you could say is head, heart, hands, me. And 3 standing circles on the opposite side, head, heart, and hands of whoever is that person that you are engaging with. So what you are saying is, between head, there is no connection. Sometimes there is good connection between the head, but there is no connection between the heart. So if you have a boss, or if you even have peers who just don't vibe to the way you feel things, then everybody may be intellectually on the same page, but something is still missing. It can cause unhappiness as well. It's a useful framework to think in terms of head, heart, hands, because the way we deal with them is slightly different. The way you deal with the challenges, the unhappiness challenges of head, are slightly different from the ways you deal with the unhappiness challenges of the heart. But they are related to each other. So let me take you there. Many times, the head, the heart, the hands are not in balance. And that basically means you are overdoing or underdoing on some aspect. You may be overly sensitive, big heart. You may be all intellect and leaving your emotions securely at home when you come into office. As far as workplace is concerned, big head. You may be losing yourself in a flurry of activity, giving yourself no time for strategic thought, all hands. So it is easy to imbalance ourselves on any of these 3 counts. Come sit down, you'll have to either find a chair in the front, which means it's the price you pay for standing in the queue. Come, come. So think both overdoing and underdoing as things that require fixing. Too much of head, too much of heart, too much of hands, too little, too little, too little. Both ways it's not right. The ideal path is the middle path, balancing the three. So if you're going to look at yourself, and just like you sometimes touch your pulse to see whether I have a fever or not or something like that, this is a quick check. Come, 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 just walk in and sit down wherever you can find a chair. There are chairs in the front as well. Okay? Or I mentioned, these two balls, these two pillars of circles, my head, heart, hands, your head, heart, hands, and somewhere they are not connecting to each other. If the team is not aligned, for example, what it means is that the hands are all pulling in different directions. If you don't think of yourselves as one team, the hearts are not aligned. If you don't even have task clarity, then obviously the heads are not aligned. And then there is this whole business of the head, heart, and the hands. So important for them to speak to each other. Now, there was a time in my career when I was doing very well professionally, but I was unhappy. And the simple reason for that was that what I thought was not what I was speaking, and what I was speaking was not what I was doing. My job asked that I say things different from what I felt, and I do things which were not me. And come, ma'am, come, just come. Huge price. I like to think my beard became white at that time. If the head, heart, and hands are not in balance, my suggestion to you is to look at your own health in some fashion. And this is not just the walk in the morning kind of health, which is your physical health. But if you are stressed, or if you are looking at, why am I doing this? What's the meaning? There is no meaning left in it. It's just a mechanical thing. That's also health in my book. It's a different kind of health. And the reason why I'm saying you look at it is not because I want you to admire it and leave it at that. The whole idea of this session is that we'll help you to identify something that you think is relevant. And my job is to simply throw some reminders in your direction and hope that you hook on to the right one that is right for you. And what is right for you is obviously very different from what is right for you. And then the fun begins. The fun is in making an actual change that speaks to the difficulty that you are facing over the next 100 days. We'll talk about some strategies, some ways in which the head, the heart, and the hands can come together so that you can make the change. And I'm sure you've made changes before, but a lot of times we make changes when we are pushed by circumstances to make changes. When there is no other recourse, we make the change. What if you could proactively get up one fine morning and say, okay, this is the change that I will make in the next 100 days. If you had that ability, you would be a much more powerful you. And many of you would already have that ability. I'm just here to remind you that please wake it up again. If you haven't exercised it recently and you are feeling unhappy, it is time to go flex that muscle. That's all. Is this making sense? I mean, some mid-course feedback?
Yes.
Okay. Come, please come. You know, the best recipe for finding help is to give help. If you feel not connected, the best way to get connected is to offer connection to somebody. And I had the genuine pleasure of meeting up with some of the volunteers before we started this talk. The thing that struck me was how unselfishly the volunteers take time out from their busy schedules or from their other pursuits, and they invest it in an event like this. Giving help is a significant way of finding your own happiness. In today's world, it has become so I, me, myself, that we've forgotten that many of the payoffs for being altruistic are not altruistic at all. They are very personal. They are very, if you want to call it selfish. If you want to give something to somebody, it is not possible to give something to someone unless your own cup is full. It is not possible. So there is nothing wrong in filling up your cup. The idea is, after your cup is filled, you have to stop pouring and start pouring somewhere else. This business of knowing when to stop pouring here so that you can start pouring somewhere else is a decision that you need to make. Sometimes by just sheer habit or sheer momentum, we continue to pour where there is no need to pour anymore. And then we ask ourselves, why am I becoming so unhappy? It's simple, it's your body, it's your world around you, it is telling you, wake up, pour somewhere else. And sometimes it's the other way around. We think we are so powerful. And by the way, this whole computer profession has a way of making us feel powerful. We go in the morning, we churn up some 200 lines of code, and by the time we come back, something is working that was not working. Okay, you're mini gods. So this kind of internalizes into ourselves over a period of time. Whatever I want, I can do. And the side effect of that is we forget to ask for help. We also become very cerebral, very intellectually strong, which means that sometimes when the help is needed over here, this poor little muscle is beating all by itself, asking for what next, what next, what next. A little bit of help, please. Anybody? Okay? You heard the term flow. I'm sure you heard the term flow. I'm not going to try and pronounce his name also. But there are times in our lives when things happen with grace and ease. And of all the people, experienced people know that when things happen with grace and ease, much has happened before it. Anybody can do heroics and make things happen. But for things to truly, truly happen with grace and ease, it means that a lot of things have happened before that. So now when it is for your own life to fall in place, ask yourself, what is grace and ease for you? Is it about looking for a tomorrow that's never going to come? Is it about staying attached to something that happened 6 months ago, 6 years ago? Or it is time to dust your hands and move on. And harmony is not made of complicated stuff. The test of harmony is, it is simple things. If you can sit and enjoy a meal, if you can find a way to have a good night's sleep, if you can smile at a stranger, if you can remember to look up at the stars and see beauty in it. And all of us can see beauty. It's just that we don't have the time or the memory to remember to look up at the stars. When did you last look up at the stars? I don't know. But maybe it's worth thinking about. As it is, it's hard to see stars in Bangalore, so you're excused. Okay, so now my point is this. This is one way of finding out what you want to do in the next 3 months. One thing, not 2 things, not 3 things. One thing, one change that will be worth the effort in the next 3 months. If there is a candidate that is sitting there in the mind saying, maybe this thing, don't kill it by judging it and saying, no, sit down, you are not ready yet. It can be anything. It's not a life sentence for you. You are not breaking ties with your present and going and doing something else tomorrow. Very much where you are, here and now, is there something you can do in the next 100 days? If this approach doesn't work, I have one more approach. In fact, I have 2 more approaches. So give me some feedback. How many of you have some thought on what you could do in the next 100 days? Okay. For those of you who are still sitting on the fence, may I suggest you sit and draw a list of 100 things to do before I die? How many of you have done that? Just give me some feedback. List of 100 things to do right before I die. Good. So at least some of you who didn't raise hands first, raise your hands now. Okay. Reader's Digest carried it long back, and I stole it shamelessly. Since then I've used it. One more. I mean, I'm just leaving ideas with you on what you could do to figure out what one change would be worth your time and energy. Imagine yourself to be as successful as you will ever be in 5 years from now. When I say imagine, please use your head, but also use your heart. In fact, if you have to choose between using both, then use only your heart. Imagine yourself to be very, very successful in 5 years from now. And maybe it's telling you that you've gotten 5 published novels. Arey bhaiya, I need to start writing week after week if I'm going to have 5 published novels. You see what I'm trying to say? If you see yourselves successful in a particular way, latch on to that and break it back into what you need to do week after week. Do that not as a life sentence, but as a project for the next 100 days. And there's some method in that madness. If you tell to yourself that I'm going to, from now onwards for the rest of my life, do this, the mind sees it as a huge thing. And it gives up even before it begins. You've got to trick this little beast into doing things for you. And one of the ways to trick it is to say, it's not a life sentence, just next 3 months, uske baad dekhenge. And so you do that for 3 months, and who knows, it's become a habit by then. And even if it's not become a habit, you've started getting some payoffs. And remember, many of us are very good with our inertia, so maybe it will kick in and help us instead of harming us. Okay? So I'm going to suggest to you that before we move forward, even if you are just humoring this guy in front of you, please have one thing that you want to do in the next 3 months in your mind. I'm not going to ask you to share it, but this is a change that you're going to make. This is not something that somebody will bestow upon you. With your own sweat, you're going to make this change. And this change is going to be worth it because the payoffs are what you want. Humor me and think of something, even if you haven't thought of it yet. Because while the conversation up till now was around what we are going to do now is how. And I'm at the halfway mark, so I think we are doing okay on time. Yes, shall I go on? Can I assume you have some darling of yours in your mind now, waiting to be explored in the next 100 days? Okay, thank you. And these are just 3 parts. There are so many parts that are possible. That's the beauty of free choice. That's the beauty of doing things proactively. Trick question. 7 birds are sitting on a wire, 5 decide to fly off. How many remain? 7. Thank you very much. Please remind yourself from time to time, 7. Because the decision is not worth anything if it is not acted upon. You know, the mind will tell you, I will do this also, I will do that also, I will do everything that can be done. But I'm going to suggest to you, don't get greedy. If you've got an you to make 3 changes, make them one after another. Be a serial entrepreneur in your change journey, rather than trying to do 3 things at the same time. And there is good evidence to support it, that if you try to do even 2 changes, forget 3, you will fall flat. We can just poll this room quickly. How many of you have successfully made 1 change that you decided to do at some point in your life for whatever reason? Kindly raise your hands. Keep your hand up if you made 2 changes simultaneously in your life. Try. So there is good evidence if you look around, even those of you who are brave, and I'd like to chat with you afterwards, of course. It is empirical evidence suggests that when there are no compelling external circumstances, all the more reason to just invite one devil into your workshop. Okay? Then after you have taken care of this one, go after the next one by all means. In fact, the good news is, after you've conquered 1 change, you get so much motivated because you start believing in your ability to change whatever you want. You become godlike, just like in those coding example that I gave earlier. That you are willing and ready to take on bigger challenges. Why is this proactive change so difficult? Huh? We all want change. We are all saying we want change. When it actually comes down to doing it, who wakes up at 5:30 a.m. and goes for a walk? Huh? Inertia, comfort zone, mindset. Some good reasons from the back? Okay.
That's where sometimes I lack.
I put myself behind others, right? Yeah, sure. Then it's not proactive. I mean, it's just do, because if it is proactive or it is die, you are gone in both cases.
One more could be not
There's no
being
urgency. Yeah.
not being practical. Instead of 5:30, if I say 7, maybe that might work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or
Most of the time we are not being
or
practical.
deciding to sleep at 10:30 instead of
Yeah.
11:30 might also work.
That also works. Yeah.
So I'm going to do a small experiment at this moment, and I've never done it in a room as big as this without too many props, but I'm still tempted to try and do it. So bear with me. Do you have a paper and a pen handy, everybody? Okay, then we'll do it all in the mind. Forget it, no issues. So imagine that you have a symbol with which you represent yourself. It's okay. It's just if not everybody has a paper, then it doesn't work. So think of a symbol for yourself. No, let it be. We'll waste too much time. Think of a symbol for yourself. Okay, done? Nothing very fancy, nothing very flashy. You should be able to see it in your mind's eye. That is the only simple requirement. Done? So take your symbol and immerse it in a pool of light. So this symbol is now in a pool of light, and this pool of light has a rotary dial on it. You can change the intensity of the light in this pool. The light is now at medium setting, it is at 5. If I change it to 6, 7, it becomes brighter. 10 is flashing white, bright. Okay? If I make it below 5, it becomes more soothing, but darker. And 0 is complete pitch dark. Take this dial and play with the brightness and find your comfort points. I'm uncomfortable below 6, above 6, I'm uncomfortable below 4. I'm uncomfortable above 7, I'm uncomfortable below 3. Whatever are your comfort points at which it starts feeling uncomfortable, not you. Just come up with that. Are you done? How many of you have 10, 9 or 8 in your comfort settings? Okay. How many of you have 0, 1 or 2 in your comfort settings? Okay. The point that I'm trying to make is most of us reach a comfort. If you are starting from 5, we go up till 7, we come down up till 3. Beyond that, it becomes slightly uncomfortable. For what reason? There's a thermostat sitting over here that God has provided each one of us with. This thermostat, the heart, holds us in check wherever we are. It's ironic that people say, this person only thinks from the heart, which kind of implies that this person is flighty and, makes irrational decisions. The truth of the matter is, it is the heart that holds you in place. This is the thermostat that guides you to stay put wherever you have set course for. This is our friend. This is not an enemy. It's a feature. It's not a bug. Okay? But the only thing is, we have to use it judiciously when we are trying to make a change, because this is the guy that will say in the morning, I have never gone at 5:30. What's this new business of going at 5:30 and catching a cold? Or there are stray dogs outside. What if one of them bites me? Logical. It will find a good logical reason, I assure you. Always does. But it is not the logic operating. It's the heart operating. You have to harness this friend and take her with you if you want to make a change. So while the idea for the change may come from the head, the doing is important, hands, and the feeling and the carrying along is important, heart. If you don't carry these two, heart and hands with you, your change is only intention-ware. It's not going to happen in a happening way, because it will come back to status quo very quickly. Which is why we need to sweat for these 3 months, for the 100 days, to make a change a habit. Because the thermostat resets itself to the new setting. Then all is well. My weight is not going to then change from 85. So because I do these sessions, I had to convince myself I can do it. So I decided to lose 10 kgs. It happened. Now I binge eat all. So I do different things. It stays at 85. More importantly, I know that if it goes up to 87, or if for some reason I want to bring it to 80 or whatever, I can do it. That gives me a little bit more power. I'm trying to say to you, if you have surrendered that power for some reason, because you're busy taking care of other people's interests and lives, it's time to reclaim some of that power for yourself. A lot of you will have children who are now ready to start a new kind of relationship with you. Up till now, you were parents and they did as they were told. Now you are repositioning yourself as equals or as friends. What better way to reposition yourself than to say, let's do a change together? Or you be my peer, I will do some watchkeeping for you, you do some watchkeeping for me. We'll make a change together. And I'm going to come to the use of, and the way the peers can be used, not the soap, to drive a change. Okay? The idea is that there is an intelligence in the head that is extremely necessary to guide us where we want to go. As a species, we are able to create consequences for ourselves because we can visualize them up front. No other form of intelligent life supports that feature on this planet. So if we are going to be able to cook up something where we are saying we want to go to this place, then the recipe has to be written down first. The head has to do it. And please don't reinvent the wheel. If you're trying to lose weight, there are well-known practices and pieces of information that it doesn't hurt to not be aware of them. There is no ego involved over here. Same thing for any other change that you want to make, including if, for example, there is a dependence on some substance or on a particular situation, then there are best practices for getting out of those. Read up, Google. This is overdone in any case, so I'm going to not spend time over here. Have you messed with visualizing stuff, any one of you? Before you do a presentation, seeing yourself doing it successfully. Does this mumbo jumbo work? Okay, so it works. Then I don't need to sell it to you. Those of you who are skeptic, or even all of you, I'm sure you pray when you are getting into a spot. You might not involve this co-conspirator on the top at all instances. But if you did, you can almost carry on a conversation, though others will think you've gone slightly. But you're nothing but talking to your own higher self. And if you are going to be talking to your own higher self, then that higher self sooner or later is going to talk back to you. You and I have been so busy in our careers succeeding that we have forgotten how to do it. I guarantee you, you knew how to do it. You might say that you only used to do that as daydreaming or as some kind of a idle mind, not having anything else to do thing when you were in college. But the truth of the matter is, connecting to your higher self and hearing that voice is extremely important. It doesn't happen on a busy schedule. You need to find time for yourself. In spite of all the pressures and commitments to everybody else that you make, this is sacrosanct. Maybe if it is not sacrosanct, then the one big change you need to make before you make any other change is to make this change. If you find a way to connect, whatever works for you, I am not prescribing any system or anything. And again, you can always go back and Google and you will find something that works for you. Find a way to connect to something outside and beyond of yourself, which is still part of you. And if you are completely skeptical to it, no issues. Leverage peer pressure. The youngster at home who's becoming a new friend, a friend at work, somebody you spend a long time commuting with but don't do anything useful with. All those are good places to find peers and peer support. Give yourself permission to change. You deserve it. If you don't give yourself permission, nothing is going to happen. You know it. I don't have to belabor this point. I'm here to remind you. Okay? So assuming you've given yourself permission to change, and assuming that you figured out the chart, there is still doing that's waiting to be done. And there are good practices. Checklist Manifesto, Atul Gawande. How many of you have read that book? Would you recommend that book to others in this room? Okay. Can you please make a note? Dr. Atul Gawande, Gawande, is a neurosurgeon in UK, writes books, actually writes essays and serious stuff. He's also written about what we'll do in our old age, given how things are changing. But the Checklist Manifesto is a great way to effect personal change. If you want, you can also look up stuff on personal quality. On on websites there are, or even on your Android, and I'm sure on the iPhone as well, there are apps which will help you, guide you through personal change, like coach.do, or if you just Google for in the Play Store personal change, it will find you at least 25 applications that will basically help you maintain a checklist, will help you track your defects every day or on a daily basis. If you're trying to walk, for example, you might wear a pedometer, and it will tell you that you haven't done your 10,000 steps every day. Small things, but they help. And we need to enlist all the support that we can, because there's a big thermostat sitting right there. If you don't do, then it is really not yours. If you have done, then it is yours. And then it locks into a habit, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. So I'm pretty much done stating what I had to state. I just want to say that I also do workshops where what you see in day one is what goes into the workshop, including giving some help in creating a peer support group. Because you are a senior group, this workshop is not something I do for profit. So if any one of you is interested in taking this material and running with it, I'm happy to share with you. If you have a team that wants this, happy to do it for you. Of course, if you have a bunch of youngsters saying happiness doesn't cut. So I rather call it as taking ownership or passion at work. The actual workshop that I do is called Passion at Work. But it is as equally important that people take ownership in what they do, and a lot of us are finding that many youngsters today are not taking as much ownership as they could. And part of it is our own doing. We've held on to things so tightly that they'll tell you where's the place to take ownership. If you want to nurture some of them and you want to start doing a program like this, I'm happy to give you a jump start. Okay? So this kind of brings me to the finish of my presentation. My Twitter handle is on top in case you need to reach me at any time. If there are any questions or any comments, observations, I'm happy to take them now. Yes? I don't think so.
It's an amazing book, and it very much resonates with what you have been.
Okay. Okay. I will make sure I do it. Thank you. If I just search for Power of Habit, I will find it. Thank you. So if you look at how head and heart connect to each other, what you feel and what you say have to be in sync, which basically means that you don't keep quiet if your feelings are saying something. Normally in a meeting or in a interaction in a professional place, if you disagree with somebody intellectually, you have no problems in stating that. But if your feelings are hurt or you don't feel it is right, it is somehow considered not so right to share that or speak out about that. And as women, we many times bring powerful intuition to the work if we will let it work. Why do we surrender that tool and kind of function from a different perspective just because everybody else around us is also functioning from that perspective? That's one example of harmony. If you take head and hands, if you are doing one thing and thinking another thing, guaranteed either you'll have a Freudian slip in the oil, or you will simply not be doing it with full enthusiasm. Similarly, if you are looking at heart and hands, invariably what you feel is what will translate into your actions. So if you make it aligned to the larger part of what you are doing, then you will have more harmony. Harmony is about not so much about creating harmony, but removing the disruptions in the harmony. So what is taking your happiness away is easier to find. It is harder to nail down. Harmony by itself is an abstract concept. I'm all for seeing it in some composition and saying, oh wow, nicely done. But in terms of how to fix things, it will show itself as a defect rather than as something that is aspirational. All right, thank you for, yeah. Yeah, yeah, loud. Louder, louder, please.
Yeah, so I just had a comment to make. This is about the giving and the taking that he was talking about. So essentially what I have seen with myself, and this is one big change that I brought in myself, is that a lot of us have, I would say, some kind of a restriction when we want to ask for help. And that comes from it could be ask for help, ask for anything, go and ask people favors, right? Favors or help, whatever you want to call it. And it comes from the basic fear that the other person may not help us. So, and I used to face that a lot, whether it's in my personal life or in my professional life. I wouldn't ask people stuff, not because I didn't want to ask for help, but because I felt that they will say no, and then what do I do next? And all of that is speculation. It's all in the mind, right?
Very nicely said.
So at the end of the day, one thing that I learned this from somebody, a very good friend of mine, that go ask, but be open to take no for an answer. Yeah. So because at the end of the day, you should be, it doesn't matter, let them say no, but don't take it to heart and feel that, that person doesn't want to help you or anything. It's more about, he's not able to do it for you at that point in time. So I just wanted to make that comment. So a lot of us probably have that feeling that, when we go and ask for help, we don't ask because we think it's not going to happen. He's not going to give it, or she's not going to do it for me. And it's important that we keep our mind open to accept no for an answer.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. By the way, there's a nice TED talk on vulnerability. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Yeah.
We spoke about imbalance in head, hands, and heart, but it's most of the times we don't even realize when we cross that line, when we got into that state. Do you have any tips to check? What is it? Because we just daily do it, and it becomes a habit, and we continue, and suddenly we realize something is wrong.
My best tip is to spend time with your higher self. Sit quietly. True. Which gives me a chance, people like me, to make a living now. Yep.
So, few days that here.
Yep.
So, while I am attending all those sessions, few sessions kept on telling that do what you are passionate about. Do right now we thought, what will make us happy. And believe me, I am finding it very hard to find out what makes me happy and what is my passion. And it's like the immediate next question is, how do I find it out? Like, I don't know how. I haven't given thought to this thing.
Don't use the head. To find out, don't use the head. Use the hands. If you have 3 candidates, try doing all 3 of them, you will know. Trust me on this. If you use the head, that is when the problem happens. This is a monkey over here, yeah? Really? At least I have a monkey. I don't know about yours. You're going to say something.
Yeah. So following up on her comment, right, regarding the schools don't encourage using the heart. So what I've noticed is very interesting. My children go to a school where a lot of encouragement is done, and children are given awards like team player, principal, and creative whatnot. And you should see the parents' face whenever their child gets one of those as a annual recognition, like, oh, maybe he's not good enough. That's the reason why they're calling him a team player and not an academic achiever or an action envoy. So it's very interesting to see the parents' reactions. The children are happy, but the parents are, kind of frowning at those.
All right.
Maybe just one more question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rani. This is about the head and the heart, what you were talking about. So, from the head, you have certain thing which says that you have to, probably in a career, you have to take an aggressive role if you want to grow. But then your heart is always finding that logical comfort logic thing that maybe if you take, you will not give time to your family or something. So, which do you hear to, How do you decide what is the right one?
Good news is you get to decide.